Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. U.S. President Donald Trump is calling it a declaration of economic independence, sweeping baseline tariffs of 10% on all foreign goods. The new measure won't apply to goods compliant with the free trade agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. But the White House says existing tariffs on trade from Canada and Mexico remain unchanged by Trump's new order. Trump says America has been, quote, looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by other nations for years. We will have reaction from Yukon leaders in just a minute. But first, Chris Reyes breaks down what happened.
President Donald Trump entered the Rose Garden at the White House with a Make America Great Again hat in hand and took the podium in front of a full audience that included his cabinet, Vice President J.D. Vance, auto workers. He spent the first 30 minutes of his speech railing against all of America's trading partners. He listed one grievance after another to justify what he called reciprocal tariffs.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. For years, hardworking American citizens were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense. But now it's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly.
President Trump explained that reciprocal tariffs will be calculated by combining the rate of tariffs and non-monetary barriers like currency manipulation, then divided in half, with some countries getting a break. He held up a chart to explain the breakdown, a chart that did not include Canada.
China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So it's 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be, because we never charge anybody anything, but now we're going to charge.
Trump did single out Canada during his speech, making false accusations against its dairy industry, which has protections that don't impact the U.S. Still, the president made a claim that he has repeated often.
Canada, by the way, imposes a 250 to 300% tariff on many of our dairy products.
After the event, the White House released a statement that goods from Canada that are compliant with the free trade agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico, or CUSMA, will be exempt from reciprocal tariffs. But other goods that are not compliant will be hit with the 25% tariff announced earlier this year, while energy-related goods will be hit with 10%. Meanwhile, other countries will still be hit with a 10% baseline tariff against all imports into the U.S. and 25% on all foreign-made vehicles and auto parts coming into the country. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Today's tariff announcement was brought up in Yukon's Legislative Assembly. Even though Canada is mostly exempt from this round in the trade war, leaders of the three parties sounded off on Trump's move. Premier Ranj Pillay says many Alaskans understand and support Canadian action.
In all of the conversations I've had with friends and counterparts in Alaska, there has been a general understanding that we are standing up for our country and our economy as they would theirs. To Yukoners, you're staying the course, you're supporting local, you're standing with Canada. And because of that, we are in a stronger position today to respond to what comes next. Thank you.
So I'll begin by stating what should be obvious to everyone. Canada is not for sale, and Canada will never be the 51st state. We support a united approach across Canada with the federal government, provinces, and territories all pushing back together and imposing a strong tariff response on behalf of all Canadians.
We find ourselves in a time of uncertainty, and it's sometimes hard to believe that it's real and that we haven't just slipped into an episode of a dystopian TV show. But it is real, and we have to face it head on, elbows up.
Pillay says the Yukon will release Phase 2 of its response to U.S. tariffs tomorrow. Liberal leader Mark Carney left the campaign trail last night to prepare for today's announcement. Canada is still steeling itself against 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum set to kick in overnight. Marina von Stackelberg has more on how Ottawa is planning to respond.
Off the campaign trail and back in the capital, Liberal leader Mark Carney stepping into his role as Prime Minister.
President Trump has just announced a series of measures that are going to fundamentally change the international trading system.
It appears Canada may be exempt from Trump's new sweeping tariffs he's now placed on almost every other country. But Canada continues to be under a 25% tariff on its steel and aluminum. And it's not clear exactly how the U.S. plans to hit Canada's auto industry, with new tariffs expected to kick in overnight.
The series of measures will directly affect millions of Canadians. We're going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures.
Liberal candidate François-Philippe Champagne fighting back against Trump's continued aim at Canada's heavily protected dairy industry. It's subject to supply management. That means Canada's production and pricing of dairy, poultry, and eggs is controlled. That protects those goods from the volatility of the market.
We don't like it, and it's not fair. It's not fair to our farmers. It's not fair to our country.
Champagne says Canada will not change that system.
We will never allow supply management to be on the table.
Pierre Poilievre wants Canada to renegotiate its trade deal with the U.S. quickly and ask Trump to suspend the tariffs in the meantime. The Conservative leader says he has not reached out to the U.S. government with his pitch.
I've been operating with the rule of one prime minister at a time. Though I disagree strongly with both Prime Ministers Trudeau and Carney, they occupy that office. And I've been very careful not to do anything to divide Canada's voice.
It's expected that Ottawa will not provide a detailed response right away. The federal government will likely want to look over the fine print of the U.S. president's orders, because what has so often been the case, what Donald Trump says is not always what he does. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
First, I will protect our control over our border, our security, our resources, our farmers, including our supply-managed farmers, our fresh water, our automotive workers. Also, we will protect our sovereignty.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre may not be speaking with Donald Trump about the tariffs, but he is speaking about them at his campaign events. Today, he talked about how he would deal with a U.S. trade war. Poilievre says Canada must build an economy that is not reliant on its largest trading partner. And as we heard, as Prime Minister, Poilievre said he would propose an early renegotiation of the free trade agreement. The deal, signed in 2020, is scheduled to be reviewed next year.
For me, our response domestically has to put workers first, has to put people first, not the billionaires and not the rich CEOs.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh also speaking today about how he would safeguard Canada from Donald Trump's trade war. Singh is pushing for what he calls a no-trade clause to protect key Canadian industries like electricity generation and critical minerals from foreign companies. Singh rejected the idea of an early renegotiation of free trade deals. He questioned Trump's plan to change what he had negotiated and agreed to in 2020. Voting day is now just less than a month away, and if that doesn't feel like much time, it's because it's not. The 36-day campaign is the shortest allowed under Canadian law. The returning officer for the Yukon says Elections Canada hopes to see high voter turnout.
I'd like to see everybody vote. Every vote does matter. As we've seen in the Yukon, we've seen Old Crow several times has gone to the drawing of lots because it was a tie vote. We've had other federal election results in the Yukon where one election the candidate won by 70 votes, another one the candidate won by 132 votes, I think 152. Yeah. South of the border, we saw 77 million people vote for President Trump, but 88 million people didn't vote at all. So there's more people that didn't vote in the U.S. If not voting in the U.S. was a party, they'd have swept the presidency, the House, and the Senate.
Yeah.
So it's a matter as to how do we get people engaged.
Advanced polls open Easter weekend from the 18th to the 21st. You can find voting locations on the Elections Canada website. Special ballot voting is already available for people traveling or those who don't want to deal with lineups. Some First Nations leaders want to see a bigger focus on reconciliation in this federal election campaign. Many feel that Canada's relationship with Indigenous people has taken a back seat amid Donald Trump's trade war. The CBC's Josh Crabb has that part of the story.
Construction work continues at Nawe Odena, the site of the former Kapyong Barracks in Winnipeg. It's an urban economic development zone for Indigenous arts, culture, and business.
At the federal level, we haven't heard a whole lot, especially when it comes to Indigenous business or what supports are going to be there.
Renee Greyeyes with the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce of Manitoba is looking for more of a focus on reconciliation in this election campaign.
Consult with us, but not only that, but give us that voice at the table too. We're equal partners to Canada.
Chief Derek Nepenak of the Minnegozebi Anishinaabe says reconciliation needs to be part of all facets of the campaign, but he isn't surprised it hasn't been front and center.
Signifies a shift in what reconciliation means, and I think it signifies a shift in where reconciliation is going into the future. That is, it's embedded. It's part of the daily conversation.
Nepenak says reconciliation needs to be part of any conversation surrounding resource development. He says anyone looking to extract minerals in Canada will need to consult Indigenous leaders. Nepenak doesn't think political parties have given enough attention to what they think those negotiations should look like. Reconciliation did come up at one of Liberal leader Mark Carney's campaign stops in Winnipeg.
We announced as a government the doubling and the broadening of the Indigenous loan program.
The NDP says it's committed to working on justice and rights for Indigenous people. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre promised a Canadian Indigenous Opportunities Corporation.
We want to give control to First Nations so that they can make these investments.
Chief Gordon Bluesky of Broken Head Ojibwe Nation says some Indigenous people may oppose voting because of Canada's colonial roots, but Bluesky says their views matter.
It becomes more and more valuable to us when we start to realize that not only the roots of it, but also that our votes really do matter.
An important way to get results, he says, reflect the values of Indigenous people. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The claims period for 2 classes in the First Nations Child and Family Services and Jordan's Principal Settlement is now open.
First Nations children who were removed from their homes on reserve between April 1st, 1991 and March 31st, 2022, and their caregiving parents and caregiving grandparents can now submit a claim for compensation.
There are free supports to help you fill out your form.
And mental health and wellness supports if you need them.
Learn more and submit your claim at fnchildclaims.ca.
Are you an aspiring songwriter? Do you want your song to be part of Nunavut's cultural heritage? Let's celebrate 10 years of Inuktitut songwriting with this year's themes, Piluk sa Tilunga and Inuit Sanasimayangit. For contest rules and more information about Kilo 2025, visit www.gov.nu.ca. The deadline for submissions is May 5, 2025.
I was fighting losing battles with opponents disguised as friends, and coming home to a different fight that never ends. I saw no other choice. I had to leave a roof for the rain. But sometimes I wonder if there was a path with more to gain. Maybe the opportunities would have been better, and every day would take me further towards something greater.
To help create new paths for youth experiencing homelessness, the Home Depot Canada Foundation is committing $125 million by 2030.
Jurors at the coroner's inquest looking into the death of George Arluktu heard from RCMP today. Kimrut's former detachment commander testified about what happened the night Arluktu died after an altercation involving police. TJ Deere tells us what Sergeant Dustin Grant said.
A warning that this story contains graphic details of a death by suicide. He was a corporal at the time, but Sergeant Dustin Grant gave his account of what happened 6 years ago. Sergeant Grant said it was an unusually busy night where he and his only other colleague received 20 calls for service. Sergeant Grant said after handling the other calls and getting some sleep, they were notified that George Arluktu's grandfather was missing ammunition and 2 guns were missing as well. The officer said when they were talking with Arluktu through the door of his house, Arluktu had made suicidal comments and that he was not acting like himself. Sergeant Grant said he was offering multiple solutions to try and get Arluktu out without success. The officer said things escalated to the point where they felt they had to force the door open. Sergeant Grant said they followed Arluktu into the bathroom where he stabbed himself. The officer said he tried to use his taser, but Arluktu's clothing made it useless. Sergeant Grant said he then used his background in first aid to try and save Arluktu, but it didn't work. He said the encounter in the bathroom lasted only 10 seconds. The 2 officers and another Kimmirut resident took Arluktu to the health center where he later died. Sergeant Grant also talked about his good relationship with the community. He said he tried to start a men's group in Kimmirut and helped the local school as well. The officer also identified pictures of Arluktu's home after the incident and audio recordings of his conversations with dispatch in Iqaluit. The inquest is set to continue until Friday. TJ Deere, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A man once sentenced to remain in prison indefinitely should be released in a little over 2 years. 52-year-old Noel Avadluk was being resentenced as a dangerous offender today in Yellowknife. He successfully appealed the indefinite prison sentence he was given in 2017 after being convicted of a sexual assault in Yellowknife that the judge described as sudden, brutal, and sustained. In court today, both the prosecutor and defense lawyers recommended a sentence of 10 years in prison, followed by 10 years of supervision in the community. They said a new psychiatric report on Avadluk shows his risk of harming others can be managed. Because Avadluk has been serving his indefinite sentence since 2017, the 10-year prison sentence will expire in August of 2027. Northview REIT is speaking out about last month's fire at Yellowknife's Sunridge apartment complex. The company's regional director says it's working with safety officials to determine next steps for restoring the building. So far, residents haven't been able to get back in to get their belongings. The company says it's in contact with tenants and they should be able to have access to their units soon. And it's also helping residents find housing. Sunridge has 25 units in total. 5 of those were rented by Housing NWT. Communities looking to become home to Canada's first Inuit-led university have a few more weeks to apply. Inuit Taparit Ganatami wants to build a university. It has a plan and it has money. Now it just needs to decide where in Inuit Nunangat to build its main campus. And it wants communities to make a pitch.
We want to make this process as fair and transparent as possible. We wanted to give all communities a chance to show their interest for hosting a main campus, but to also gather as much information as we set up the knowledge centers as well.
The deadline to apply is April 17th. ITK is hoping to open the university in 2030. Rogers Communications and the NHL have reached a new agreement for the national media rights to NHL games on all platforms in Canada. And it's much more lucrative than the current deal, which expires after next season. Jamie Strachan has the details.
Martyrs in front, scores! How much hockey can Canadians watch? And how much will they pay for it?
There is nothing more valuable in this country from a media standpoint than having the rights to the NHL.
Rogers hopes so. The company just shelled out $11 billion to broadcast NHL games across all platforms for 12 years. The deal more than doubles the value of its current deal, which expires after next season.
The value of live sports content just continues to appreciate, and it's really rooted in viewership continuing to grow.
It's the NHL.
But that doesn't mean your favorite NHL team will always be on Rogers-owned platforms. The deal allows it to sub-license some games to streaming services. Currently, Monday night games are on Amazon Prime. So, could more be sold off?
The answer is yes, we'll look to it as a possibility and a strong possibility. As we look to the next 12 years, the agreement with the NHL is that we'll look to opportunities to continue to sub-license where it makes sense.
This sports media journalist says even though Canadians love hockey, Rogers has to be careful.
But I do think in terms of consumers being stretched, in terms of their own budgets, I think if I was Rogers, I would think very long and hard about what that price point would be for hockey.
And hockey fans in the United States.
There's also the question of what role CBC might play in this deal. After more than 70 years of NHL broadcasts, its current contract ends after next season.
We value our partnership with the CBC, and over the next 18 months, we'll look to see if there's a continued partnership there.
With the Stanley Cup playoffs around the corner, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman says the game will connect with a wider fan base. Rogers is banking on it. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Pond Inlet is celebrating its 50th anniversary. The big day was yesterday, and it was marked with drum dancing, throat singing, games, and prizes. The community's mayor says the get-together was amazing.
I think it was a great celebration, and everybody contributed, and the whole community came together. It was packed.
There was also a presentation on the history of Pond Inlet and guest speakers, like the community's first mayor.
It's a very, very good feeling. Before Hamlet, before any of this, we had very little say. We didn't run too much. It's a good feeling. It taught us how to run a community. Since then, we've gone into debt and recover from debts. We learned how to manage our finances.
The celebration happened at the Hamlet's Community Hall. Congratulations. It was an event full of celebration and hope in Happy Valley Goose Bay, Labrador. Hope for Innu culture, music, and people. The Innu Daymoon Music Festival is hoping to keep the Innu language alive. The CBC's Heidi Adder takes us there.
Hi everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone to our event.
Thea and David Panashaway speak a mix of Inuamun and English during a 5-hour celebration of music, language, and culture. The hope inspiring the next generation to keep their language alive.
They say in 10 years and 15 years, the language will be gone. The language came a long, long ways. Even also the music, also the drumming, the language move the spirit.
In between the music, organizers honored those who've worked for decades to help Innu. Peter Panashaway, Mamu Jishkoda Mashudo Innu Education, and Mary Pia Benuin. Local musicians lit up the stage with song. The event showcased local talent, but also Innu from throughout Dustasin. Like Abek Shawit.
Before I didn't speak Innu. My mom didn't teach me. So she thought that if I don't speak French well, I'm not going to go far. I tried to learn Innu songs. That's how I began.
The organizers hope performances like Shawit can inspire the kids in the audience. The night ended with a dance and hope for the future.
This is our second year in this concert. And hopefully this will go on every year, non-stop.
A lot of stuff we learned too about the funding available for this kind of events, for the cultural hours for the Innu as well.
Beyond the festival, David and Andrew have big dreams for their community and what could be done.
Maybe in the future that we might, if we have like this kind of building in our community, there's a lot of opportunity for the new generation, and the time goes fast, and there are new things that are coming.
A night of optimism and aspiration, dreaming big about the future of their language, culture, and music in Shajit. Heidi Adder, CBC News, Happy Valley, and Goose Bay.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
What kind of Canada do we want for our kids and our grandkids? I want a Canada that works for you. But Mark Carney spent his career hurting workers to make money for the powerful. He made life harder for families and easier for big corporations. And Pierre Poilievre, he wants us to be the US in everything but name. I want a Canada that works for you, where we fix our public health care, get your costs down. Let's protect our kind of Canada. That's worth fighting for.
In your once stolen vehicle in West Africa.
That is crazy.
Jumped in the car and then off they went.
I want my truck back.
300% increase in auto theft.
300%.
It's organized crime, well-financed.
They are selling vehicles that are insecure.
They're working on it.
We hear that from a lot of automakers.
Yeah.
We think we found your car.
Oh my goodness.
General Brock is dead. Americans hold the heights.
We are but 100 men. They are thousands.
Sawadis. Our future was determined by our oath, not the Americans. This land does not belong to them. Comrades and brothers, remember the fame of ancient warriors. Let not their numbers frighten you. I know in my heart, before the sun falls behind these hills, our enemy will have fallen before you.
Well, what can we hold them?
At the Battle of Queenston Heights, 80 Grand River warriors, including John Norton and John Brand, held off the Americans for hours to help take back the heights.
Being there means being here. The city is now very still. To share. I'm so freaking worried about them. Adrian Arsenault reports on CBC News. Stream free.
And he can lift anything. Anything at all. He's that strong.
Joe Schuster, will you stop it or you'll miss your train? Now help me find number 5.
Strong, but by day he's a mild-mannered reporter. Glasses, you know, a secret identity.
Honestly, you Canadian kids.
He'd be in this cape.
A what?
A cape. Wearing these blue tights.
A hero in tights, really. Here it is.
Listen, Lois, this guy is faster than anything, I swear.
If you're not fast, you're gonna miss your train.
That's it. A bullet. A bullet. He's faster. No, he's faster than a speeding bullet.
Come on, get on it. No one's gonna read a comic strip about a strong man in tights, Joe. It'll never fly.
Fly, no. but he can leap over tall buildings. Oh, wow, yeah.
See what your cousin Frank says in Toronto.
Wait, Lois. I've got something for you. Take it. It's a gift. You never know. It might be worth something someday.